Time for that time. It is time for Space Watch. Brad Tucker, astrophysicist and cosmologist at ANU, joins me now. Thanks for your time.
No worries.
Now, we're going to start off on a pretty dark note because we always talk about wonderful developments in space and, you know, these countries cooperating that don't normally. But amidst all of that, satellites are stalking, interfering with other satellites. Yep. We're talking about Russia trying to interfere with the US here.
Yep. You know, and it's kind of goes back to the root of what we call like Space Force and things like that. So people fail to realize, you know, there is a lot of mischievousness that is going up above them. You know, this is a case in point. When we think about satellites going in predefined orbits and they don't change. There's a class of what we call inspector satellites, and these are satellites that dramatically change their position and swoop into listening right next to it. And then you have what Russia's done recently, and that is essentially a satellite launch that gave birth to a second satellite, that gave birth to a third satellite in orbit.
Babushka satellite.
Yeah, it really is. And this is very important legally in control-wise. When you say, I'm going to go put a satellite, you're given a predefined orbit, control, and it has kind of a legal traceback. It is hard to prove what those second and third satellites do, where they go, and who controls them in the event that they interfere with the US or any other country satellite.
So what's the point? When you say they're listening in, if they get close enough, whatever that satellite's used for, if it's a military-based satellite, they can hear what it's doing?
Yeah, like, you know, we're talking now, but my voice projects this way. Now, if you're behind me, you don't hear as much, but if you come and sneak up right next to you, you hear our conversation
I would have thought
perfectly.
satellites that wouldn't be how they work. But that's literally...
Well, you know, it's just a radio beam. So, you know, you're talking about that...
You're intercepting the radio beam.
Exactly. And if you're close enough, that's why it works. You know, far away, it's not an issue. Right. But if you get right next to it, you just communicate directly with you, and there's not much you can do.
So why the third one? What's the significance of the third one?
So it's two things. There's technology, right? It's important. It's actually impressive that they're able to do this, but then there are small satellites that you can't really control, you can't track. They also change their orbit. So you might say this satellite has been put in a safe orbit, we know what's around it, but then the third one comes and swoops in and you don't know what it's doing. And now this has actually been happening for probably a few years, and it's not just the US is affected. These things happen to, say, satellites like Optus satellites, for instance.
Right.
So,
and they get hit out as well, they get knocked?
They can be, and that's the issue, right? You don't need to destroy it, you just give one little prick or one little disabling. $2 billion of infrastructure is now
so
a piece of junk.
deliberately hit by
yes,
these things?
They can be. And that's the issue. This is the essence of Space Force. Not armed conflict, but I could just sink $2 billion in critical infrastructure in a minute.
All right, well that's worrying. Boeing Starliner, a test in December, had a second glitch, but we're now learning exactly what it's going to mean.
Yeah, so look, there's been a few glitches that has happened. So what happened here was that when they first tried to do its approach, so the capsule launched, tried to reach the space station, the clock got out of sync, so it kind of pulls the time from on board of the rocket, which is synced to the launch.
That sounds like a very basic error.
This is the root of the issue, because it kind of is. Like, look, glitches happen. However, it was pulling the time, and it pulled the wrong time, so it did the maneuvers of when to launch and when to go wrong. Now that
an hour wrong?
It was off by, I think it was about 17 seconds, right, which is enough that if you miss the burning times right, it's that. Now that was known when it happened. What wasn't known when it landed is on the way back, when it de-docked from the space station. So it kind of leaves the space station, docks with the thing that brings it down. It also had another timing computer glitch that if they didn't correct it in real time, the two components would have crashed in space. Now, they did catch it and they did fix it, but it was only when it got back down and NASA did an audit said, wait, you almost crashed in space.
So someone knew about this, NASA did the audit and figured out someone had managed to quickly...
To fix it. You know, it's great they fixed it, but it doesn't bode well for confidence that in a fully automated system where there's supposed to be no flaws, that it's going to work. You know, Boeing's trying to race to get humans up.
If it's the same sort of issue, will one fix maybe, you know?
Hopefully you do. You know, it does seem like a software problem, which is good. You know, broader issues of Boeing and software maybe isn't the greatest thing. You know, it's rocket science. It's hard, but it's a sign that it's not smooth sailing, and Boeing really wants to get their person launched this year. They might have to repeat this whole test to prove to NASA they can do it flawlessly.
We've also got a new fast radio burst. This has been discovered. Now, it might give the timing of it or the length of it might give a few clues as to what it is.
Yeah, so fast radio bursts are something that were discovered here in Australia. So there are big explosions of radio light that go through space. But what's been found from a new one in Canada is it actually has a repeat of every 16.25 days. So kind of perfectly on time, they can time it precisely that this explosion happens.
Which led a lot of people, laymen, should we call them, laymen and women, to think that maybe this is not something natural.
Look, you always jump to aliens. It's never aliens until the one day it's going to be. But it's actually more natural in the sense that if you think about the Earth, right, we have a perfect-ish 365-day orbit. The moon has a perfect orbit. Things that orbit around each other do this very regularly. So it appears that it's actually probably a black hole and another star orbiting around rather than maybe a homing beacon or something like that.
Which is what Dr. Carl suggested, but I just thought I'd set that one up for you.
I don't think Dr. Carl, unfortunately, is right in this case. I think it's a cool black hole being involved. You know I love black holes.
Yes, I know that's your favourite. Just finally, new data from New Horizons, which visited
Arrokoth. Yep.
The most distant objects in the solar system. What are we getting in here?
So this happened, it was a flyby last January, last New Year's, and it's the most distant thing. And what they found is that because the way they form together, kind of like two balls softly touching, that instead of our solar system being formed from big collisions colliding, because that's what we thought, that we're formed from big explosions, that it's actually a whole bunch of rocks that eventually just kind of bend and mesh together, so a lot less violent of a solar system formation. So clue is that actually how the Earth formed by seeing the very thing at the edge of our solar system.
So is this confirmation of recent theories? Or?
So it's actually a change in the theory that's been the leading thing for about 30 years, that we always thought giant collisions happen to form, but by seeing this thing that's kind of been untouched for 4 billion years, it appears they've just softly have come together.
So there's now a new theory in how our solar system was formed.
That's right, a big explosion.
This should have been your lead.
Well, it should have, but you know, space, I don't know. It's you gotta close and start well, Tom, right? You know, you gotta keep the viewers on board. But no, it's I think a big example into how our actual planet came together, and that was a bunch of small pebbles essentially coalescing, which is quite interesting.
More peaceful. Brad Tucker, thank you.
Thanks.